Hello and welcome back to the Power Era. I'm your host, Andie Thueson. And let's just be honest, the last 18 months have been a bit of a trip. That's because the nodes of fate have been in Pisces and Virgo. So there has been a lot of pressure on spirituality versus physicality and where we function in the spiritual realms and how we function in our day to day lives. There's been this give and take, this pull. And we've seen this on such a big scale as we're having new conversations around spirituality and what that looks like in real life. And are we escaping into spirituality versus being super grounded in the human experience? And this is something I personally have really lived for the last 18 months. For me, my North and South node are natally in Virgo and Pisces. So this is definitely something that hit home for the past year and a half. So January 11th, 2025, the nodes of fate moved into Pisces, the North node into Pisces, and then the South node into Virgo. For me personally, my North node is in Virgo and my South node is in Pisces. So that's what we call a nodal reverse. These nodal transits are just not weekend transits. They're not these quick little transits that we move through and move on. They last for 18 to 20 months. So again, these nodes have been hanging out since January 11th, 2025. So as we're moving through this conversation, think about what's been going on personally for you for that last period of time. Because I think as we get into this conversation, we start unpacking the energies of Pisces and Virgo, and then also moving into these new energies of Aquarius and Leo, you're going to see these things in your own life. I always enjoy looking at astrology in hindsight. Because sometimes when we're looking at transits on our charts, or you're listening to a podcast and they're talking about these transits, or you're seeing an Instagram post, there's a lot of hype on what it's expected to look like. And I always try to steer clear of hyping expectations of what might happen, specifically with the ones that are good fortune or some of those that are like maybe not good fortune, because every transit's going to work its magic in the way that it needs to in your life. So with that being said, hindsight's really great because we can look back and be like, okay, now I know what that looked like in my day to day life. And I can now look at the past 18 months from a corrected lens of understanding of what this transit was showing me for the past 18 months. And then we can have new conversations. We can have new understandings of how maybe things didn't pan out the way that you wanted them to, or they did pan out in different ways. It gives it language for what's happening in our day to day life. So that's the conversation I want to have around the nodes of fate. So moving into what are the nodes exactly? There's so many different points and asteroids and fixed stars and astrology that it can be really overwhelming. So first of all, beyond jargon, the nodes are not planets, they're not asteroids, they're not fixed stars. They are literally degree points of the moon's orbit that crosses the sun's path. And that's why they're always tied to eclipse season. So the past year and a half, the eclipses have been in Virgo and Pisces energy. And you may have noticed that if you're paying attention to astrological posts around the eclipses, they're always going to be tied to those nodes. So moving forward, we have our first new moon solar eclipse. It will be in Leo. And then we'll have a full moon partial lunar eclipse later in the month of August, which will be tying up lessons of that North node in Pisces before we really move on to this energy. So that's what's moving forward. The North node represents direction of growth. It's what's unfamiliar, what's uncomfortable, the thing that actually moves us forward. So if you're looking at your birth chart and you're seeing little headphone looking things, there's usually one that looks like a headphone. And if there's not one that looks like an upside headphone, it's always directly across on your birth chart. So the North node is usually on most charts South node sometimes doesn't show up. Just know that it's directly across wherever it is. So if you see your little headphone north node in Virgo, let's say at 10 degrees, that's mine. The south node will be in Pisces at 10 degrees. So it's exact same degrees, just directly across on the axis. And that's how to find your north node and south node on any given chart. The north node is what we're meant to mature into. It shows us our soul's maturity path. When we tap into our north node, it's showing us our soul's projection, where it's meant to grow. For example, my north node is in Virgo. So for me, creating systems, creating structures, being really grounded in the human experience and doing the day-to-day things are going to be things that are not necessarily comfortable for me. They are things that aren't first nature to me. But the more that I harness that energy of creating structures, of creating foundations, of creating rhythms in my life, the more my soul grows, the more my soul matures, the more I step into what I'm actually here to do. And little side note, my Saturn is sitting right on top of my north node. So Saturn, little refresher here, is where we are also meant to learn a lot of lessons from. It is also a really strategic point to look at for what you're meant to grow into. Saturn always has tons of blessings when we do the work. I always like to call Saturn that cranky old uncle that wants to give you an inheritance, but to get the inheritance, you got to do the work. So when those are tied together, sitting in Virgo in my 10th house, I'm here to create a legacy and to create something of value and of service in creating structures. Let's go full circle. What have I been creating when the South Node was hitting up against my North Node for the past year and a half? It was like, hey, hun, have you started creating that structure? Have you started creating service and giving back with the work that you have learned throughout this lifetime? What did I create? The Power Era Collective. Everything, when we look back in hindsight, everything clicks. Everything ties to these transits of nudges from the divine, from universal intelligence, making sure that we are committing and working into these soul contracts that are laid out in our astrology chart. So that is what I've been moving through. So always think about the North Node on your chart as the thing that's uncomfy, the thing that is not quite second nature to us, but the more that we lean into it, the more that we work toward it, the more growth, the more potential that we have. The South Node is the opposite of that completely. It is the direction of comfort. It's stuff that we've already mastered, we've over relied on, and is quietly costing us. It is the place that we could do this while we're sleeping. It is so easy to us, we don't even think of it as a talent. And for me, my South Node is in the fourth house in Pisces. So for me, spirituality, connecting to the divine, channeling, really being super connected is easy to me. I've always had this deep connection to spirituality, even when I was within the confines of a fixed religion. I always considered myself more spiritual than religious. I always felt a deep connection to God, to spirit. And for most of my life, I've always felt other spirits around me. I know that sounds a little out there, but for me, that's been very real. And I remember being a kid and feeling spirits and even at sometimes seeing them and being very concerned and going to parents and being shut down. So there's a lot of my spiritual gifts that were shut down very early because of fear of adults around me. And as I've done the work over the past 18 months of with that North Node knocking on that South Node, it has really unlocked a lot of those spiritual gifts for me in new ways. I'm getting more comfortable understanding that spirits want to talk to me. They want to talk through me when I'm working with my clients. It's so interesting with this past 18 months. a lot of my spiritual gifts have become unlocked and have become stronger because of this transit. Because remember, when we look at things in hindsight, they always get stronger. We see things more clearly in that hindsight. And as I'm even just having this conversation with myself, recording this episode, I'm like, oh my goodness, 100%. My gifts have become so much stronger in the last 18 months as I have done the work to see where they got shut down and to see at what points I, as a child, turned them off because they caused fear in the grown-ups around me when I would talk about these things. So it's all full circle, friends. It's so fun when we sit with these things and we start to understand how they're actually navigating and underlining us and bringing us back to our soul's purpose. And for me, the South Node is that connection to the spirit realm and having it be really strong. But that deep connection to the spirit world, the deep connection to understanding and knowing and being a channel of divine intelligence, directly channeling into my North Node of what I'm creating and using these spiritual gifts to build in the physical realm is the work that I have truly been honing over the last 18 months. So I want you to think about in your own experience, where has this been showing up for you? Where is Virgo and Pisces on your chart? Take a look at that and really sit with these things. You can always reach out and DM me on Instagram or shoot me an email. I love having these conversations. So ask away. These nodal cycles, again, they last 18 months to 20 months. The next cycle is actually going to be a little bit longer. It's going to be July 26th of this year, 2026, and it will last through March 26, 2028. So this is actually a 20-month cycle. We get a couple bonus months with this. As we move through this next cycle, what we're leaving behind is going back to my own experience. The North Node in Pisces was about surrender, intuition, dissolution of identity, and a whole lot of not knowing. So if you have felt a little disconnected from reality and feeling very much in your head spiritually and a little disconnected from the physical essence, this is why. Again, hindsight is always so helpful when we look at it. The South Node in Virgo was here to teach us and help us release over functioning, over optimizing, and the belief that if you just got the system right, the anxiety would stop. And that was the lesson. And as you look back at your experiences over the past 18 months, how did that show up for you? And again, it'll be different based on what those houses were. For me, Virgo, that South Node was in my 10th house. So a lot of it was building my business, and a lot of it was the over functioning in what I'm building online were themes that I saw. But if that was maybe in the 8th house, that would have been more deep reset of things going on under the surface, or even in the 12th house, because the 8th and the 12th house show us what's happening on that subconscious level. Those are deep excavation years when we have things happening in the 8th and 12th house. If it was happening maybe in your 2nd house, that would be around security and sense of worth. So it's fun when we start looking at these things. So I want you to think about what has dissolved for you since early 2025. What did you stop being able to hold on to altogether? Be honest about the cost. Pisces node years are foggy. A lot of us have spent this cycle feeling directionless and blaming ourselves for it. You were not lost for the last year and a half. You were in the part of the process that doesn't photograph well. The fog was not failure. The fog was a clearing of the site. Now we built. Now we move into the North Node moving in Aquarius. So I want to make this also clear, because sometimes in astrology, we don't understand why things move the way that they do. So the nodes move backwards. So you're probably thinking, well, Aries is after Pisces, so wouldn't it go into Aries? The nodes move backwards. So it's going to go from Pisces into Aquarius. And once it's done with Aquarius, it will move into Capricorn. So that's how those nodes move. So clearing that up. So, Aquarius themes that we're going to work with for the next 20 months are collective over the individual. There is going to be a lot of emphasis on the future over the familiar, the system over the personality, and the group over the guru. This is a really big dynamic of the collective versus the I, the we versus the I. Those are some major themes. What the growth edge actually feels like is being one voice inside a room of peers instead of the only voice in the room full of admirers. Aquarius wants everyone to have a seat at the table. It wants equality. It wants everyone to be able to stand up and use their voice and take concepts and ways of viewing the world from equal spaces. Aquarius is not worried about being the star. It's not worried about being the main character. It is worried about, does everyone have a voice? Does everyone have a seat at the table? So that is the shift with this North Node in Aquarius. We're going to see more of. There's going to be more of this community element of like, I want to know what you have to say. I want to know what you have. What's your opinion on this? What's your perspective on this? It's this mastermind energy of when we all get together, when we all collab, things get better versus us looking to one solo person to guide. That is a main theme there. So, for the women who are listening to this, and you're rebuilding after a divorce, a faith transition, a career exit, this note says, because again, the South Node in Pisces, there was a lot of disillusionment. There were a lot of dissolving of things that were not meant to move forward. So if you went through a faith crisis, if you went through a divorce, if you went through a career change, that was very much on purpose for you during this dissolving phase of Pisces. Again, there was a lot of fogginess, and now the fog is lifting and we build what's next. This next version of you gets to build with other people and not in isolation. This is a team build energy. This is a team project that we're moving through for the next 20 months. Aquarius is also the sign of deviation. What you do differently is not a branding problem to be smoothed out. It is the assignment. This is where individuality, quirkiness, doing things in your own way are celebrated. Aquarius beats to their own drum. I always like to call Aquarius people, they're kind of almost like these little funky little aliens that just landed on this planet and they do things in their own way and they're their own vibe. So, do we have this element of collective, collaborative energy? But we also have this added element of being an individual within the collective. So these things are stacking upon each other. So, in practicality, this next 20 months is for building community containers, memberships, collaborations, and anything that outlives your own personal energy output. So this is the time to find your tribe. Find your people, who you want to build with, who you want to collaborate with, because that is what is going to work really well for this next 20-month cycle is the working together, masterminding together, collaborating together, finding the people you are so excited to build with. Wherever Aquarius falls on your chart for the next 20 months is asking you to build something you have never built before. Wherever Leo falls on your chart, you're being asked to loosen your grip on how that looks. So Leo is my ninth house, Aquarius is my third house. So Aquarius sitting in my third house, that North Node is going to drastically want to change the way that I communicate, the way that I show up on social media, the way that I email people, the way that I work with people. Communication is going to be very different and it's going to want me to reinvent and look at things in a different way. And then the ninth house, Leo, is going to want me to teach in a different way. It's going to want me to teach without needing an audience. It's going to want me to teach for the habit, for the clear devotion I have to sharing ideas. It's asking me, do you value your voice? Do you value what you have to teach without needing the applause to make it worth it? That's going to be a tricky one. And that's one for all of us to look at. Leo wants an audience. That's the shadow side. They live for the applause, they live for the spotlight. But I will remind you of this. You are worthy and deserving and beautiful as a human being without having anyone else applaud you. You are worthy because you exist. And the shadow side of this South Node in Leo is dissolving the need for applause, dissolving the need for outside recognition without needing anyone else to prove that receipt, without needing anyone else to prove your worth. Those are kind of the things that are going to come up. I want to be very clear about what that South Node is not saying as well. It's not saying to dim yourself. It's not saying to stop being visible. There's going to be some misreading, and you'll see this a little bit on social media. You probably already have, because it's already everywhere online. What is actually being released is that need for approval, that proof of worth, the performance of confidence, the identity built on being the most impressive one in the room, kind of what we just talked about there. And this is the one thing I'm really excited about with this transit is the exhaustion of having to maintain an image. Leo likes to maintain that image. The way praise becomes a drug and the silence between compliments becomes unbearable. That's what's being asked to be laid down and to be let go of during this transition, kind of like what we just talked about there. If we look back to last week's episode about imposter syndrome, this is very much tying to this. We need to let go of us needing to look a certain way and just sharing what's on our heart, sharing what we've learned. In the process, we have been prepared. We are here to teach. And just because only one or two voices are hearing us doesn't make the message any less valuable. This is a hard one for me personally, because as a projector, then also we add in that I have my Jupiter in Leo, I have my Mercury in Leo, and then I have my Black Moon Lilith in Leo. So I do have a lot of Leo energy, and we weave in that projector energy in there. There is this part of me that craves recognition. With being a projector, that is the one gift that I have, is that I do see other people so clearly when I'm also seen is magic. And it can feel like a drug sometimes. So this will be some very humbling work to move through for the next 20 months. I have this podcast and I have Substack and I have other social media that I put out there. And sometimes I get really great reads. I get really great views on things, and others it's crickets. And it's really hard sometimes when I feel like I poured my heart into something and it's like, wah, wah, wah. Nobody read that. And I feel like it was my best work. So that is what I, and maybe you as well, are being asked to lay down. Leo at the South Node is a reminder that you were never applauded into existence, so you cannot be booed out of it. Some things to think about. Okay, now let's talk about what to do with this information. Let's actually get into the practical. So, number one, find Aquarius house on your chart and name one thing you would build there if you're not waiting for permission. Number two, find Leo on your chart and name a place you are performing instead of participating. Number three, audit your rooms. Are you in rooms where people admire you? Are you in rooms that grow you? Aquarius wants peers, not admirers. Number four, stop waiting for the applause to tell you it's working. Ooh. Pick a private metric instead. If you're wondering where Aquarius and Leo are on your chart and what that even means, head over to andiethueson.com/astrochart and run your free chart there. It'll pull it right up and it will tell you what's happening on your chart. This last cycle asked you to let go of who you thought you were. This one asks you to build what is next. Those are the themes that we're growing through. Feeling unrecognized right now is not a sign you're failing. It is a sign that the node has moved. This is exactly the kind of work that we do within the Power Era Collective. This is the community I built through the last nodal shifts. And it is going to be such a beautiful landing place for those who are wanting to build what's next. It is a collective, which is exactly what Aquarius is wanting for you. It wants you to build in a collective with other people, with other collaborators, where you don't have to build this alone. And it's there and it's waiting for you. And it is such a beautiful space. I'm so proud of it. And it is exactly what I was meant to build over the last year and a half there. And a reminder, own your peace, step into your power era. The world needs it. Much love, and we'll see you next week.